to get things going, and I'm not sure how much or if you've seen what I do and how I do it on this type of platform here. It's called officially Talking Slop. I'm your host, Darren the Baron, Talking Slop, aka Talking Shit, inspired by the funk, you know what I'm saying? And what this whole platform was kind of inspired by one of my elders teachers, Kalinde EE, who supported me on my journey. And about 2 years ago, we was just talking about how we got to get some of this information out to the people, using the technology, using the platforms that are out there, take full advantage. And that's kind of what inspired me doing what I do on this platform now. But at the same time, it was geared around not taking it too serious at the same time, like as far as why it was called Talking Slop, aka shit, was just geared around. That's what me and my homies and my people do a lot of times. And off the back of that, many divine things come out of those types of conversations. So the whole idea was just checking in with folks that are doing amazing work that I've either worked with myself, been inspired by. Yeah, I lost you for a minute. You're back. Yeah, been inspired by, and are doing amazing work, within their own right. And as I said previously, I've just seen and observed you from the sidelines. I know we've not built in that capacity, but I'm aware that we utilize the same platforms, social media, and we've been on platforms, in particular was the Afro Psychedelia put on by the Sabina Project. That's when I really honed into what you're doing, your works and your efforts. So again, I salute you and commend you for what you're doing officially, man. And I'm glad you've taken out the time to talk slop with me. There's no structure, bro. There's no structure. It's just, we just chop it up. There's a few reference points that I've got that I'm inspired by that I'll definitely bring to the forefront of our conversation. But how I get down is basically just by asking yourself to just share who you are, what you do from your own perspective. And I'm going to piggyback off the back of that. And then we get rolling, man.
Right on. Well, I'm alive here in central Pennsylvania. It's an interesting place to be alive. It's surprising to reach the level of whatever life I'm living it right now from here. Because it's like, I don't know, there's not a lot of accessible tools to play with. There's not like the right toys to play with to get here. Well, I guess there are, but I don't know. It's still interesting It's interesting to me. But there's a lot of work that I feel is like that I'm needed here for, because I keep ending up here, and I feel like I'm kind of wrapping up some of those things. But yeah, this place has been interesting. The nature is beautiful. The culture on top of it is I like the community, but the culture is unpleasant, if I'm going to be honest. But I like the people. It's a little slow here and industrial, and the USA grind time really fast, especially where I live. It's a hub. We're right. All of the major highways that connect New York City and Baltimore, DC, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, all the major cities here on the East Coast connects right where I live. So everybody's moving so fast. The energy's moving so fast here all the time. So I kind of find myself getting all caught up in the mix, and I forget to slow down. And when I slow down is where I find the most of myself. So yeah, really interesting place to exist right now. But I do have the luxury of bouncing around a lot. And what I do mostly is look at organisms, looking at life. I found that looking at living organisms is the best mirror, because I started to realize at a young age, after I ate mushrooms, that everything is connected. And so I am just as much that blade of grass as I am myself. I'm just as much that tree as I am myself. So I found that by studying the mushrooms and studying the plants and studying the algae, that I was learning more about myself. And then I started to recognize that the most ancient organisms that I could work with had the most stories to tell. So I started working with the mushrooms and the cyanobacteria. So I grow a lot of spirulina, and I've been working on developing dialogue with these organisms so that I can learn more about them, so I can learn what stories they have to tell.
Cool, brother. No, I appreciate that, man. And I'm often asked and questioned, and I'm going to pose the same question to you, because one, we don't, and this is partly why this platform was, manifested, basically to have people that look like myself and yourself talking and sharing and engaging, because it doesn't often take place on platforms like this. And people are always curious to know, well, how the hell did you get into this, man? Like, mycologist, you're talking about algae and organisms. I see you're a young brother. Like, that's not, the school of thought that many of us are kind of introduced to or show an interest in. So just to go back, you said the mushrooms,
Yeah.
mushroom experience inspired you, but was there anything, could you just share more about, the path that you've taken to get to a point where you're studying this, but now you've moved and graduated to where you teach, man? I see your platform, man. I see your page, and you're just dropping too much knowledge and game on us when it comes to, algae and mycology and stuff. So yeah, what's that rooted in?
Well, I mean, it was wild. Like, I mean, I'm going to be 100% myself. I always like have to change up the way I talk to be appropriate for other people and things like that. But I feel very comfortable with you here. But I feel very blessed. Like, I feel like I was born into this perfect situation, and I feel like a lot of us are, but just don't realize it. Like whenever I was born, like, my grandfather, he's very well educated, Black man here in Jim Crow state in the United States, Virginia. It's like, they have these Jim Crow laws where he was born, he couldn't go to the same schools, he couldn't go to the same bathrooms, he couldn't go drink at the same places, all of that kind of stuff as white people whenever he was little here in the US. And he had to go learn English by going to church. So he had to go learn a religion that's not of his people to learn how to speak the language of the place that he lived. And he learned to speak English by learning the sermons that they were doing in Latin. So his understanding of English based in Latin, and he became one of the first Black men to be a English professor in New York City at Medgar Evers University in Brooklyn. And he kept telling me when I was a little boy, he's like, William, you're the first free Black man in our family. You're the first free Black man in our family. I'm going to teach you how to speak. You're going to use your voice. And he's like, made sure I knew how to speak, and he made sure I knew that I had the freedom that he didn't have.
Right.
So like, right. I understand. I like, you grow up in the world, and there's so much distractions that you get distracted a little bit. But my grandparents, my grandfather and my grandmother, I lived with them when I was really little, and they instilled so much wisdom in me. They didn't talk to me goo goo gaga baby, nothing like that. Like, they were both scholars. Like, they read to me stories that they wrote themselves, and they drew the pictures for themselves, and they made sure that I wasn't watching the TV. They called it the boob tube every time that they would talk about it. They're like, it's the boob tube. We don't turn it on unless it's for something good. Like, so like my grandparents were very like intellectual, and because of that, whenever and because of that, my mom had an emphasis on education, and my mom ended up getting a really good job with the government Department of Agriculture that allowed us to travel outside of the country. And for certain diplomatic jobs, the government pays for your education. So I got to go to schools that I would have never been able to go to otherwise. So I got to go to really good schools. And then I ended up in Pennsylvania living with my dad on the military base, and I ended up going to regular public schools here and connecting with so many different cultures along the way. So by the time I was like 16 or whenever I ate the mushrooms, it clicked so hard. Like, when I ate the mushrooms, it brought me back into the present moment, and I realized that my whole life I was equipped with all the tools. I lived in New York City, I lived in North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, DC. I lived in London. I lived in Mexico already by that time. I had lived in Taiwan by that time. I lived in Virginia. I had been in so many different school programs. I had learned multiple different languages. And by the time I ate the mushrooms, I was like, oh shit, I'm a fully equipped human being. Like, I have all the tools necessary to engage. I know who I am. Like, the mushrooms, like, just put a mirror in front of my face, and everybody said, don't look in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh, hey, there you are. Like, I remember I was like, oh, I know who I am, and I'm fully equipped to engage with this world. So I realized that every little interaction I had up until the time that I ate the mushroom was on purpose, and it was preparing me to be a human in this world. So like, ever since then, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew who I am, and I knew what my passions are. And by following my passions, it's guided me to be here learning about this crazy cutting edge science, because I mean, it's like the flower of life symbol. Like, once you're a little baby, you only know what's in the first circle. And every time you can be more aware of something else, another circle gets added. Well, now I'm on the edge of the circles, hanging out with all of the fun people that are having fun, trying to figure out what's the next circles.
I feel you, bro.